Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Twice, a villain from My Hero Academia. Probably, in my opinion, one of the best written characters in the whole show. He's not my favorite character, he's not the best character, but I do think he is the best written. He is a perfect example on how one's quirk can infect them with such a heavy mental strain that they can't bear anymore. He is the poster boy for mental stress in quirks. Twice is a very interesting character. So, first, let's give a brief synopsis on who he is and why he is before we start talking about his character arc in the story and everything he's been through. This will have spoilers for the manga for people who have not read it. Either don't care about spoilers or click off the video now. This is your final warning. All right. Twice. First introduced in the first in the training arc in the forest. The second time the League of Villains attacked. I don't know the name of the arc. um, but Twice shows up. Uh, mm, he doesn't have any interactions with Class 1A, but he does use his quirk to make a copy of Dabi to fight in oh my god. Give me 1 second. He does use his quirk on Dabi in order to fight against Todoroki and Eraserhead, and that's his introduction as someone who's wacky and zany, who constantly has contradictory thoughts about everything. At first, we think this is just a character quirk of Twice, but then we learn more about him. We we learn actually about his backstory before we know that this is Twice's backstory. He seemed like just a guy living his life. I believe we got his backstory twice. That's hilarious. I wonder if that's intentional. We got it once with earlier on, and then we got it again going a little bit more into detail about it when he had his reawakening, so called. But Twice shows up again, and we learn that when his thing gets ripped, he doesn't feel whole. His mask, his identity of being Twice, is a bandage on his broken mentality, his broken mind. And his mind was broken in a very in a way that can only be broken in a world with powers or quirks. It's a great way to highlight how one's mental state can be highly affected by what quirk they have, what quirk they get, or what quirks that can do to you and who you are. And Twice's quirk, obviously, it's to make multiples of pretty much anything. The copies are not as strong as the originals, and Twice basically decided he was very lonely in his life, and he decided, hey, I'm going to make more friends who get me and who understand me, and I'm just going to make more people out of myself, and then I'll have people to hang out with. He made about 14 copies of himself, including himself. And basically, they tied him up, and there was a huge fight where he basically watched himself murder each other over and over and over again, repetitively, to the point where he didn't even know if he was the original anymore. And because he was he didn't know if he was a copy or not, he was so afraid of breaking a limb because that might be as little as it takes to completely erase him if he was a copy. So he goes his entire existence in the story living in fear that one broken bone can just erase him. And this mental stress completely covers him the entire time. The mask is kind of like it's a band-aid on internal bleeding. It's not doing too much on the outside. It's not fixing the problem. It's just putting a band-aid on it. Twice's story arc where he becomes a villain. He didn't become a villain because he wanted to do villainy. He became a villain because this is the only path he saw open to him. He found friends within the League of Villains and decided, hey, these are people I like. These are people who understand me. These are people who accept me for who I am. This is all I've been looking for my entire life. He is only a villain because the people who understand and accept him are villains. Uh, does this mean he's a good person? No, because he would still kill, shoot, and murder if it means that he can spend more time with the people who care about him, with his friends. Sorry about that. I have a stuffy nose, so I had to pause for a second. All right. So he was introduced to the League of Villains through, I believe his name is Giran. I believe it's spelled like Giran, I believe. Or is it just An? Doesn't matter. Um, Giran was the person who introduced most of the members of the League of Villains to Shigaraki when Shigaraki was looking for recruits, employments, people who aren't just any villains who could actually like prove useful to him in the League of Villains. And that is when Twice learned about the League of Villains. And immediately he felt a bond towards them. In particular, he felt a bond towards Toga. His relationship with Toga is pretty one sided, but the time when Toga took her handkerchief and put it around Twice's broken mask, as we can see in these two images right next to me, uh, this one and the one over here, uh, we learn that this is the exact moment we as an audience learn that something's very wrong with Twice up here. He wasn't the same jokey self he always was. And we learn that this isn't a personality trait. This is the highlights of a broken mind. And each time, Twice beats himself up more. Each time, he feels like he's letting down his friends. Not the company he works for, not the people he works for, but he views these people as his friends, maybe even his family. And he thinks that he's letting them down. So he's always trying to try harder. But the more he tries, the more he fails. There's two examples of this. The first is when he brought Overhaul to the League of Villains to discuss business. And Overhaul ended up taking Compress's arm and doing some other stuff there as well. And that is the first time Twice really felt like he let down the people he cares about. His failure in his own eyes, and he hated himself for it. And he's looking for this path of redemption to move forward. The next time Twice really has a big character moment is in the manga. I don't think this has been animated yet. Was when he is watching Toga. He was fighting this dude who could control puppets, mannequins, and they made a bunch of mannequins of Twice. Not his fully clothed form, just him himself. And they made these mannequins attack Twice and Toga. And Toga was out for the count, completely knocked out, bleeding out. And Twice was being restrained by people he thought was himself. For all he knew, they could very possibly be himself. But they took Twice's limbs and they basically snapped both his legs and both his arms. Or was it just his arms? I think it was just his arms. Just completely snapped. And Twice at this point, he had a huge breakthrough. He knew he would have disappeared if he was a clone at this point, if he was a clone. This doesn't fix him, but it did allow him to have a breakthrough. And that breakthrough was being able to use his powers on himself again. And this breakthrough was amazing. It basically gave Twice the power to push through and help defeat the whole people that they were trying to fight. They could not have done it without Twice. That is Twice's biggest character moment in the entire show. It was impressive. and it showed that Twice was actually a valid part of the League of Villains. He wasn't the joke that everyone thought he was. He was an actual important member. The League of Villains ended up uh, incorporating this whole people that they were fighting into their organization. And in this point in time, Dobby is recruiting Hawks. Hawks is a spy. Twice does not know that Hawks is a spy. He just thinks Hawks is here to help the League of Villains because he supports their goal. So he grows close to Hawks. And the biggest betrayal was when Hawks decided to turn against the League of Villains after Twice absolutely trusted him. And Twice basically told Hawks, because he thought he was trustworthy, some important pieces of information that screwed over everyone. And Twice again tried to fight Hawks, and let's just say it did not end well for Twice. And Twice, struggling to help the people he cares about, his family, his friends, the only people in the world who tried to care about him, he met with a very tragic end, where at the end of the line, he managed to save Toga one last time and hand her back her handkerchief before it was the end for Twice. The last thing in his heart wasn't trying to fight Hawks, it was trying to do the one thing for the people he cares about, his family. Twice is, in fact, a villain. He's been a villain the whole show, but he's been a tragic character who actually cares about the people in his life. Perhaps if other people came to Twice's rescue and helped him back then, he would be a very different person today. But this is where Twice lives as a tragic character. And that is the summary of who Twice is. The reason why he is such an interesting and well written character is because of his mental strain with his quirk. Twice is one of the only examples of how one's quirk can inflict so much mental trauma on oneself as a character. Twice is the poster boy for this. He is a perfect example on how simply not even a bad environment. Sure, people ignored him and he had a rough ish life, but things were okay for Twice until he decided to attempt to help himself with the easy way out and using his quirk to make himself friends. He just didn't want to be alone anymore. And his one desire backfired on him. The one thing he wanted more than anything turned against him. His own self turned inwards onto itself as he watched himself slaughter himself over and over and over until he was the last one left, not even sure if he was who he was anymore. That kind of mental strain broke him. And that is his lowest point in the series. From that point, he met G-Ran, who introduced him to the League of Villains, and he grew closer and closer with them. None of them ever gave up on Twice. They might not have cared about him that much, but none of them gave up on him, and they all accepted them. The League of Villains was a group of misfits, a group of loosely put together villains who all had one common goal. And Twice was just happy to find people who actually believed in who he was, who accepted him, and who wanted him around. And he saw these people as the closest thing he ever had to a family. But he gradually expanded this view and started becoming closer to more and more people. One of these people ended up being Hawks, who betrayed him again. And he let down his family again. But his final act of pushing forward was saving Toga. So at the end of the day, Twice showed that his character was one out of all the League of Villains, and even most of the heroes. Twice was the most heroic. He could have made a fantastic hero. He had the mindset for it, and he truly cared about the people he was with. The only reason why he was a villain was just to stay close to these people. Twice was brilliantly written, and he had a tragic end. And I'm glad that he had his character go all the way through the story. Rest in peace twice. If you like this, leave a comment down below on who your favorite villain from My Hero Academia is, or your favorite hero, or both. Why not? Leave a like on this video and subscribe for more content like this. I have done videos comparing My Hero Academia characters and villains to the characters and villains in Black Clover. You can check out my channel and find more videos like that. I've also done a video on a character analysis on Bakugo. If you liked the same style, you might like that video as well. And that's it for me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.